It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. I got to start with probably the funniest story I saw all day. And look, you know, if I'm being accused of a crime, if I've been indicted, maybe I try this tact. But according to the AP. Donald Trump's lawyers have asked a federal judge to schedule trial for April of 2026. April of 2026. Now, look, you know, I'm going, who knows? He may not even be alive in 2026. But the DOJ is asking for a January, this coming January, a couple months down the road. The Trump folks, 2026. Yeah. And look, am I surprised? No, not at all. But what they're saying is, look, you know, sorry, you know, he's a busy guy. He's a busy guy. He's got stuff. He's got places to be, things to do, people to see, deals to make, because he's got to surround himself with the best people. I'm guessing that's it. Now, the argument is he's running for president, so we don't want to interfere with that. So I guess if I'm ever accused of a crime, I'm just going to run for something. Instead of running, just run for office. Because, hey, you know, you're disrupting my schedule. Quite amazing stuff. Now, yesterday I talked about something that evidently, you know, piqued some interest in some, angered some others. I talked about the song Rich Man North of Richmond, I guess it's what it's called, by this guy Oliver Arnold, I believe his name is, or Oliver Anthony. Yes, I said I listened to it. I saw that it was getting some attention, and the listservs that I'm on, you know, the people who are much further left politically than I am, you know, we're just, this is, you know, basically calling it a Nazi anthem. You know, it's the song of white supremacists, and he's going after. Everyone saw what they wanted to see in it. Whatever their colored glasses were, that's what they saw. Whatever silo they found themselves, that's what they saw. And I was simply pointing out that, look, the reality in this day and age is people are angry, people are struggling, people are suffering. Things are happening that need to be addressed. And that we do need to listen to others. We do need to hear the voices of working people. And look, first and foremost, I am not a country music fan by any stretch of the imagination. My wife will attest to that. You know, we've been together a long time. Been married over 23 years now. Been together, you know, 27 some odd years. Never. In fact, one of the first things that came up was, what kind of music do you like? Anything but country was the response. And, well, here we've been together all this time. But here's the thing, not a fan. Just to put that on the table, not a fan. Had to do that. But the idea behind it, I'm a supporter of. The idea of working people are struggling, I'm a huge supporter of. So I got a bunch of emails, and I want to go through some of it. Daryl from Minneapolis wrote me an email, said, Rick, you read the lyrics to Rich Man North of Richmond, and I have to tell you, I was so happy to hear your take. Too often we are forced into silos and never actually talk about anything productive. I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about Red Hat, Blue Hat. Love that frame, by the way. I saw LeBron James singing along to that song and thought, LeBron James and Rick Smith like it? It must be all right. Keep up the fight, brother. And look, Daryl, again, not a country music fan. It's the message, and it's what's being sent out. It's what we should be hearing. The feeling of this country right now is there's something wrong. People are angry. And we have to address this. And I've said for a very long time, whichever party figures out how to address these concerns and make people feel like they're addressing their needs, they're going to be the dominant party. I think of FDR. People are still talking about we need to go back to the New Deal and FDR. There needs to be that. Because understand, you watch some of the videos that come out of these rallies and stuff. There are people who are angry. They're saying, we're not Democrats or Republicans. This isn't white or black. This is what I've always said. It's green. It's money. And what the reality is, and the reason we keep hearing a lot of the stuff that we hear is once we figure out corporate America has been screwing us, they're in trouble. Once the very wealthy are the target instead of each of us, there's going to be problems. Now, I got another email, no name. Rick, I'm disappointed to hear you defending that Richmond song. You know what people like me means, right? This is dog whistle to white supremacist crowd. Do better, Rick. I didn't get that. I guess maybe you can throw that in there somewhere if that's what your view is, what your silo is. I get it. But then I got these emails. And now understand, I know nothing about Oliver Anthony. All I saw was this song being talked about in this space that I ghost, that I just want to know what people are saying. And this is horrible, this is bad. So I had to go see it. So this person sends me an email, and I'm assuming this photo is of a Facebook post from Oliver Anthony. And on February 24th, 2022, he posts, "As an American, I support and stand with Joe Biden. He has changed this country for the better. Those who live off government assistance are parasites to this country. Joe is what a true American is, hardworking and not taking handouts. Those on the right who sit on their backsides and complain about the left are not this country. A true Democrat is this country, and that is Joe." This is the guy who supposedly wrote the white nationalist anthem. Someone else sent me an actual Facebook post, a link to his Facebook page, where he goes through and tells the story of his life. He talks about how he dropped out of high school in 2010 and then got a GED. He talks about working in multiple plants for poverty wages, 6 days a week, third shift. He talks about the struggle. He talks about being injured on the job in 2013, fracturing his skull and can't work for months. He talks about all of this stuff. And this is not unique. This is what working people go through and what I've been talking about for years now. This should be new to none of my listeners. This is the kind of stuff that I've been talking about for, coming up on 18 years now. Because this is the life that working people live. He said he got another job where he spent the last 10 years hearing the same story from person after person. And he says, look, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of people being neglected, divided, and manipulated. He said, look, there's nothing special about me. I'm not a very good musician. Not a very good person. He says, spent the last 5 years struggling with mental health, using alcohol to drown it out. He just says, look, I just want to see a better country. And I got to tell you, when I listened to that song, that is what I heard. And what I hoped would come out of it is what he says he wants. And that is people to pay attention to who is really dividing us. Look, and you could attack me. I've been attacked over this before. As someone who was humiliated having to use food stamps as a kid because my mother could not find employment or childcare or any of that, I am dead set against handout programs. I want jobs programs. My mother wanted a job. My mother needed healthcare. I want policies that are going to move in this direction so that we don't have these humiliation moments. We don't have these divisive moments. And I've said for years, government should be the employer of last resort. Bottom line. You need a job? You need to put food on the table? You're going to get one. But no, we're not going to get that from our Republican friends. And again, I come back to, saw this information today. CEOs from 300 of the healthcare companies in this country, the top 300 CEOs of publicly traded healthcare. Now remember, we're told, well, healthcare is all nonprofit. Nonsense. Their combined salary in 2022 was $4 billion. $4 billion over 300 people. You're talking over $13 million a person here, with the top guy being, or the top actually woman, being the head of Moderna, pocketing $394 million. You want to be mad at something? Be mad at that person. Be mad at this system. Now look, the welfare person who he went after eating the fudge rounds, yeah, you go, hey, I don't agree with that. The welfare queen that I want to go after, the parasite that I want us to go after, are these CEOs who are stealing healthcare dollars that should be taking care of people instead of lining their pockets. See, I'm a policy person, always have been. Sound policy, smart investment. That's how we rebuild the most prosperous working class in the history of civilization. And I come back to where this has to be political. The Republican Party has shown me nothing that they give a rat's behind about any working person. What policy have they moved forth that's going to help us? Let's take school lunches, for example. Something very simple, something that benefits the working class of this country, something that I benefited from as a child. They want to do away with universal lunch programs. It's in the Republican Study Committee's report. Want to do away with that. Kids, if they're hungry, they'll go in and clean the bathroom, pull themselves up by the bootstraps. You just had Josh Shapiro, who's just signed the law here in Pennsylvania guaranteeing breakfast and lunch for students in this state. That is a good thing. Republicans want means testing of lunch programs because, we don't want anyone undeserving to eat. And I like what Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said. He said, look, the haves and the have-nots in the school lunchroom is not necessarily the thing. Just feed our children. Give them the dignity of just being able to eat. In the wealthiest country in the history of civilization, can we at least do that? And then maybe we start. We're reaching out to this Oliver Anthony to try and get him on the show because I think this guy can be helpful, because someone like this can, in fact, go into those crowds and talk about the things that he's written, the things that we talk about here on this show. It's possible. We just have to do it. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Unions are making a comeback. More organizing in the last couple of years than in a long time. And the Biden administration being more supportive of unions than any president since FDR. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice as Americans.
Got an email that caught my attention. And again, it's another one of these. Yesterday was just a big email day that there were so many of them that I wanted to get to. And if I didn't get to yours, there's always tomorrow or the next day. But I got an email that said, hey, Rick, I heard you talk about religious leaders and how they are losing their minds, and saw this story about Greg Locke smashing a Barbie house. Did you see it? Any thoughts? And I didn't. She sent me this image of this pastor. One of the more famous right-wing zealot-y kind of pastors, and he evidently wrapped a baseball bat with a Bible, and I'm not quite sure why. It's one of those things where you're gonna use the Bible to bust up a Barbie house. Why? And evidently he spent time doing their show, whatever the song and dance is. Destroying this Barbie house. And again, it's a movie, man. He's all worked up about a Barbie movie. And I guess it's because the Ken character acted a little feminine. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm still trying to figure out why this matters that much. It's It's crazy. I mean, but I guess it's the time and the place in which we live in. But here's my another frustration. While we're distracted by this, this is what someone writes me, and I appreciate it. Thank you. We're still in a moment where our Republican leaders are doing nothing to help working families. And it used to be that Republicans were the party of the military. It used to be they were the party of national security, very paternalistic, the law and order types. And you do know that Tommy Tuberville, the dumbest guy in the U.S. Senate, is holding up the promotions of hundreds of military officers. And I guess we're 3 members short on the Joint Chief of Staff right now because Tuberville is holding all this stuff up. And Kirsten Sinema, who I guess never finds a place where she doesn't want to butt her nose into, she decided today to call on the president and Tommy Tuberville to, find common ground, work this out, find some common ground, find the middle ground. This is why I hate Democrats sometimes, or Kirsten Sinema, more likely. Now remember, Kirsten was 100% prorated with Planned Parenthood and NARA and all the abortion groups. But hey, we have to find middle ground. And what middle ground got us was a ban on overturning Roe. So never mind that. But the question I have is, what does she want Joe Biden to do? Now remember, she's got 100% rating from Planned Parenthood and these other groups, a 0% rating from the anti-abortion groups, or the pro-birth groups. What common ground? What should Joe Biden concede to get Tuberville to do his job? This is my problem with weak Democrats, because there's nothing that drives me crazier than weak and stupid. And we've got both here. We've got Sinema, who's weak, and we've got Tuberville, who's stupid. And when weak and stupid are running your government, you've got problems. And we've got problems. And this is why I keep saying the reason that working class voters have moved over to Republicans, even though Republican policies are horrible for them, are destroying their families, are destroying their jobs, destroying their communities. Even though they're doing all that, they at least look tough. They at least look strong. They at least look like they're fighting for something. Granted, they're fighting to screw me over. Granted, they're fighting to make sure my kids don't get an education, but they're fighting. And it's one of these things where you just go, what is it that's got you on there? It's angering and it's frustrating. But this is the place that we're in. Oh, we got Lewis online too. Let's go to Lewis. I got about a minute. Lewis, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, Rick?
Good. What's on your mind? Go.
Since I'm short on time, I want to say that, this discussion is really interesting. And I want to just kind of add a little something to the discussion about, how to unify the working class. And, the dominant narrative is one in which the Democrats lost the white working class because they went radically left as far as social liberalism and stuff. But really, what happened was the Democrats, went along the lines of neoliberalism, and the working class, white or black, couldn't really make a distinction between the two parties, right? And in fact, everyone tends to think that it was Reagan that kickstarted the neoliberalism.
No, it was Carter and Kennedy.
It was actually Carter.
And Kennedy.
I'm sorry?
It was Carter and Kennedy.
Yes, exactly. And, they were big on deregulation. And as you probably know, two of the major industries that Carter deregulated was
trucking and the airlines.
And, trucking, right? So, if the Democrats had stayed true to their original plan back a couple of decades ago,
we wouldn't be in this mess. You're spot on, Lewis. I appreciate the call, man. Thanks so much. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
We've been farming the same farm for 3 generations, and it's just always been where I've wanted to be. Any farmer you talk to in Montana will tell you that the climate is definitely changing. The weather is way more extreme. We went from the wettest year we've ever had to this year with the worst drought we've had since the 80s. We've done everything we can to keep water going, but it got close to running out. Farmers can't afford the cost of climate change. Congress has to get this done.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something in your mind, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. You know, this is one of those moments. Have you noticed that you don't hear much about Jim Jordan anymore? You know, it seems like nobody cares about Jim Jordan anymore, or Bobo for that matter. I haven't heard much about Gun Fetish Barbie or Marjorie Three Names. Been kind of quiet on the crazy front. And I don't know if that's just the mainstream media just kind of taking a break, or they're just not producing fresh, crazy content. I don't know. But how many people saw that Jim Jordan's committee, the House Judiciary Committee, subpoenaed Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray, the FBI director? I didn't, it was a small little story I saw. Wasn't a big deal. I know, the weaponization. They're weaponizing the government against poor, pitiful Donnie. Have you noticed something with the persecution of Donald Trump? Have you noticed that none of the people who are witnesses, none of the people who are involved are actually Democrats? Have you noticed that it's all Republicans? Somehow Joe Biden has weaponized the Republican Party against themselves. It's crazy. It is literally crazy. Now, I look at what's going on down in Georgia. And you've got a state, I think it's a state senator who's now looking into going after Fani Willis because, she's weaponized. They published the names of the jurors, the grand jurors, who were the ones who set down the indictment. And now you've got the Fulton County Sheriff's Department that are investigating threats against these jurors. And this is one of those things where there's part of me that goes, why do we publish the names of these grand jurors? Because you knew that crazy people are going to threaten them. And look, there are lunatics on all sides of the politics. But this promoting of violence that we see is crazy. For instance, in my neck of the woods, evidently, some old woman was all angry, 69-year-old woman, charged with arson and other related crimes, when she set 3 fires to the home of the mayor in her town. I guess she really didn't like that decision that the mayor made. And this is one of these things where you go, explain to me why you would take this kind of action. Not, crazy, off the deep end, folks. For instance, also, a woman with dual citizenship in France and Canada was in Canada sent ricin, I believe it was, to Donald Trump and 8 Texas law enforcement officers. Now, again, I condemn all of it. This is stupid. It's terrible. She got 22 years in jail. So my mind goes, here's the baseline. 22 years in jail for sending ricin to Trump and to others. Okay. If you're threatening someone's life, if you're doing all this stuff, pretty good place. So all of you crazy people who are going to threaten these grand jury folks, there's the bar. Is it worth it? You look at what happened out in Utah, and I know my crazy right-wing friends are, we've never killed anybody when the FBI comes to their door. Really? You point a gun at an FBI agent, they're gonna shoot you. And this is where the MAGA folks have kind of got to be worried, because they've all got arsenals, and people know they've got arsenals. So don't make threats against people. Don't do it. And it's so bad. It's so bad that the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, and I didn't even know there was a group called the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. Evidently, they have started a tax-exempt 501c4 organization called Value the Vote in 5 states: Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, Nevada, Wisconsin, with one of the sole purposes to protect election officers, to protect the officials who take care of that show up for election day. Evidently, they've raised $2.5 million of the $10 million that they need. But this is, are you kidding me? They're raising money to pay private security for election officials of both parties, because crazy doesn't know any bounds. There seem to be a lot of red hat crazy though, and they're going to evidently protect those folks and then register new voters and try and combat disinformation. And I'm going, $10 million? That's all you think you're gonna do all that with $10 million bucks? It's crazy where we are, isn't it? And I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I knew things were getting heated. I knew we were a little tense. Never would imagine where we are today. Never imagined how mean we are to each other, how hateful and spiteful that you see people, especially people who view the others. And I'm of the mindset of, how do we organize people to come back together, get between the curbs and hammer out what are real problems? Because as I started today's show off on, that Anthony Oliver, or Oliver Anthony is his name, the guy with the Richmond song, he's hit a nerve that working people need to understand. And he's got a story. He's authentic. He's a real guy who's suffering real consequences. The question is will we take this moment and come together, or will we use this as another thing to divide us? Will this be the thing that can draw us together? Will this be the spark? Can it be? Because at the end of the day, if we start focusing on the right things, like the reasons that our education system is failing, the reason that our cities are crumbling, our rural communities are struggling, if we focused on the real problems and said, hey, let's fix those, and we focused on the reason why we're in the situation we're in, the rich people ain't gonna be very happy. Because you talk to people, they want a higher tax code for the very wealthy. They believe they're taxed enough already. They're struggling to put food on the table. When we start focused on the right things, I think we can do great things. But as long as we're continually at each other's throats, red hat, blue hat ain't gonna make it. Want to hear your thoughts though? Miss any portion of the program? Download the podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. You can find ours. Email me if something I said got under your skin, on your nerves, made you happy, made you sad. By all means, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do answer all emails personally. Appreciate you taking some time to tune in. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.